Hi everyone, my name's Jude Williams and today we're going to have a look at colour theory. So at the end of this Satchel class, hopefully you will have a better understanding of colour theory, why the colour wheel is important in art, and how you can use colour theory to progress your own artwork. We're going to look at a number of keywords today. You might want to pause the video and write them down. We're going to look at primary colours, secondary colours and tertiary colours. We're also going to have a look at hot and cold colours, complementary colours, harmonious colours, and finally tints, shades and monochromatic colours. So first of all, let's have a look at a little bit of the history of colour theory. So colour theory has been around for a very, very long time. Sir Isaac Newton promoted this idea of sectioning colours into a wheel. So during his time, he decided to have a look at different colour and how it relates to light and how we perceive those different colours. Then Johann Wolfgang Goethe started to put that all together and try and use that within different artworks as well, to show people how they can mix different colours. So did any of you know that science and maths are very, very useful in art? You might not think it, but colour theory shows us how we understand colour by using science, showing how we as humans perceive the colour, how we see it. And then we also use maths within art, how we can use different amounts of colour to create different visual effects. We can mix colours to replicate something in real life, as in an artwork. Or we can match colours, or we can contrast them. And we can even use colours to convey emotions and feelings and messages. Have you ever heard of the phrase green with envy? Or sometimes people describe when they're not feeling very good as if they're feeling blue. There are loads of ways that we as humans visually understand colour, but also emotionally understand colour. So let's have a little look at what the colour wheel actually is. So the colour wheel here, this is a basic version. It's split up into 12 different colours. Now, many of you will know the different colours of the rainbow. You may even know the letters that we use and some of the acronyms that we use to describe those letters, to remind us of the different names of colours. Sometimes in science, we say Roy G. Biv, and that corresponds to all the different colours that we would see in order in a rainbow. On this colour wheel, we can split it into different types of colours or different groups. The first one that we're going to have a look at is primary colours, and then we'll go on to how you create the secondary colours. So these three colours here are primary colours. Hopefully you know this bit of information already. Yellow, blue and red are our primary colours. Sometimes we call them primary hues, H-U-E-S, a hue. With these colours, they are our original sort of three colours, our prime colours. We can then use these colours to mix many other different colours on the colour wheel. So let's have a look at how we would create the secondary colours and what are they? So these are our secondary colours. If you have a look, there's green, orange and purple. Sometimes people don't use the word purple and they use the word violet. It's up to you really what sort of colour you want to describe it as. So for the purpose of this lesson, I'm going to call it purple. So if you mix blue and yellow, two of the primary colours, what colour do you think you'd create if you mix equal parts of blue and yellow? Yep, that's right. You create the colour in the middle, which is green. Equally, if you created equal parts of yellow and red, you would create the secondary colour of, yep, that's right, orange. Then if you use blue and red in equal parts, you will create the secondary colour of purple. Let's have a look now at the other colours that are on the colour wheel. These extra colours, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 extra colours, and these ones are called tertiary colours. You can create these by mixing different parts of primary and secondary colours together. So you might end up mixing to get this top colour on the right-hand side, which is a sort of yellow-orange. You might mix more of the yellow than the orange to create that yellow-orange. Some people might describe it as a paler version of orange. It's up to you how you describe those different colours and what words you use. But for this lesson, I will be calling that colour a yellow-orange. Next, we have the orange colour as that pure primary colour, the pure hue. And then the next one down that's highlighted on this, the next tertiary colour, is the red-orange. Sometimes we may call it a red-yellow. Sometimes people do call it that, but I will call it a red-orange. The next tertiary colour we've got is this purple colour, but it's closer to the red. So what do you think we will name this colour? Yep, that's right, it's a red purple. The next one is more of a blue purple. If we go round now to the sort of 9 o'clock position on our colour wheel, we have the blue green. And then if we get up right to the top again on the left-hand side, we've got the yellow green. So now we've learned our primary, secondary and tertiary colours. Let's have a little look at the next bit of our colour theory. We've highlighted the names on here: primary, secondary, primary, secondary, primary, secondary. And then those sections that are in those boxes are our tertiary colours. We can also talk about splitting the colour wheel into halves. We have one half, which we sometimes call the hot or warm colours, and the other half, which we call the cold or cool colours. Often I will say hot and cold, but some people would describe them as warm or cool. It's up to you again what words you use to describe them. You can remember that the hot or warm colours remind you of the colour of fire. So if we're thinking of fiery colours or the sun or things that are burning, we think of yellows, oranges and reds, those really vibrant, bright colours. These colours are very useful in advertising. We also then can call the cool or cold colours. They can remind us of things like the depths of winter. You can think about the cold colours being of the cold ice, that maybe some of those leaves that are changing on the trees. It's easier if we relate hot and warm and cold and cool to things that we've already seen around us. Again, these colours can be good in advertising as well, dependent on whether you want something cool and calming or whether you want something hot or vibrant. So why is it important to know the colour wheel? Well, as I just mentioned, a lot of colour theory goes into advertising. The first bit we're going to have a look at on the left-hand side is our complementary colours. Now, you might have heard the word complementary before, as in paying somebody a compliment. It's being nice to somebody. It's bigging up something that they are very good at. Now, complementary colours complement each other. The red essentially makes the green look brighter. You might even remember some of these colours or recognise them. Red and green is often used at Christmas, creating that complementary, happy sort of feeling. You might have seen different chocolate bar wrappers that are yellow and purple because those colours complement each other. There are many other examples of complementary colours on the colour wheel. It is any colour that is opposite each other. So it could be, for instance, the yellow-orange and the blue-purple. It could be the blue-green and the red-orange. It's up to you which you think is most complementary. I particularly like the yellow and the purple. I think they bounce off each other and make each other look really bright and interesting. And I think in terms of using tertiary colours often tend to look better as a complementary group than pure hues. The next bit we're going to have a look at is harmonious colours. So these are usually 3 colours that are next to each other on the colour wheel. So on this example, I've put red, red, orange, and orange. You can see that those colours are nice together. They just move slightly and slowly from red to orange, including that middle mix of colour. I've also included the yellow, yellow, green, and green. These are very, very bright, vibrant colours. You could also be thinking about creating a sombre or sad piece of artwork, in which case you might want to use some of the blues and purples. You might want to mix a blue, purple, and a purple to create those different tones and that different feeling within your artwork. The next bit that we're going to have a look at is how you create different different tints, tones, and shades of the hues. So remember, we said at the beginning, the hues are the pure colour. So here we have on the left, on the top, the different colours from the colour wheel, the pure hues. Next, you can create tints. Sometimes we refer to them as pastel colours. You might have heard that before. The tints are the pure hue, but then we add a bit of white to those tones. Not too much white, because we don't want to overpower it and make it too pale, but we add a little bit of white and we can create these different sort of tints to the colours. You might say, well, that pinky colour is now looking really, really pale. You might say that the yellow colour is now looking really, really pale or muted. Sometimes we use the word muted as well. Then we have on the bottom left, different tones. So this is adding different greys to your hues. Again, this can make it a little bit paler, but it's a little bit more vibrant. And it creates a sort of muted, sombre tone. Now, these are my favourite ones, the shades. We are adding a little bit of black. Remember, the black is our most important prominent colour, so our most important hue. When we add black to things, we only need to add it a small amount at a time because it's so powerful. We don't want to add too much and then not be able to see our hue at all. So when you add a little bit of black to these colours, you can see that they almost feel more opaque, which means they feel a bit sort of darker. They're less transparent. We can't really see through them. Like the pastel colours, the tints, we can almost see through them, but the shades have a solid sort of block of colour. Next, we're going to have a little look at monochromatic and tone. So tone first. You may have heard your teachers in school asking you to add a wide variety of tones to your work. When we look at tone, we're often talking about how dark or light you can become with a pencil. So often we talk about the tonal value scale, going from the darkest tone you can create to the lightest tone you can use. Often the lightest could be even the white of the paper. When we're creating this, usually we create dark and light tonal drawings on white paper, just like I've done with this flower drawing here. On the paper, I've pressed harder where I needed to create the darker tones, where the shadows are, and then I've used my pencil very lightly where I want those lighter tones. I've even used, in certain sections on the petals, a rubber to rub out my tone and leave the white of the paper as the highlight. Monochromatic is when we add different white or black tones to a hue. So in this picture here, you can see an example of something called atmospheric perspective. Atmospheric perspective is the changing of the visuals when we look through the atmosphere. So when we're looking at a landscape like this photograph, because there are different water particles in the air, as the mountains go further away from you, they become paler. To create this effect with our paintings or our drawings, we can use a dark blue for things that are in the foreground, like the trees that are at the front of the picture. And then we can add a little bit more white as we go back further and further into the background of the picture. When we're coming really far forward into the foreground, you might even want to add a lot of black to that blue hue to create the really dark tones of the front. So how can you use the colour wheel and colour theory to progress your own artwork? Well, I would suggest that you start off with getting some colour pencils because they're the easiest material to start with. And remember, you don't have to have a full set. You can just use the 3 primary colours, yellow, red and blue, to start off with. For these pictures in my sketchbook, I was using some lovely colour pencils called polychromos. But you don't have to use any big brand pencil. You can just use 3 normal yellow, red or blues. Practice with your colours. Practice layering them on top of each other. Practice with the different tones of colour that you can find. And then if you want to progress further than that, have a look at using some paint, maybe some watercolours, because with watercolour, you can add more water to create a lighter tone. So let's have a quick recap now. We've only been in the lesson around 15 minutes, and hopefully you've got a greater understanding of colour theory, why the colour wheel is important in art, and how you can use colour theory to progress your artwork. So the more you know, the more you can put this knowledge into practice. Remember, it is about practice in art. It's about learning and understanding, but then it's also about doing. The more practice you have, the better your artwork will be created. Understanding how colours are perceived or understood, well, when you know the relationship between certain colours, it helps you to understand how those colours are understood by your viewer. You can choose colours in your artwork that can convey certain emotions. Remember, we spoke about blue being an emotion for sadness. You could be having a look and having a bit of a research of Picasso's blue period to see some examples of this in art. Create your own colour wheels using the materials that you have at home. Begin to make conscious decisions on which colours you'll use in your artwork and why. Thank you very much for joining me on your lesson today. I hope you really, really enjoy learning about colour theory and practicing with your own colours. Thanks very much. Bye.